good afternoon, everybody. My name is Javier de la Torre. Thank you very much for coming. It's great to see so many people here. And I'm here with Josiah from Pivot Bio. We're going to be talking a little bit about our journey, the journey on geospatial and things on top of Databricks and how CARTO works on that. There's some great announcements that have been today that we want to also talk to you about. But before we get even into introductions, I wanted to ask the audience, how many of you work with geospatial data today?
All right.
Awesome, so this is the majority of you, great. So we can skip a lot of stuff. so great, so that's, I think there's some really cool stuff that like was announced today that we're very excited to tell you about. But before that, as I said, my name is Javier de la Torre, and I'm the founder of and Chief Strategy Officer of CARTO. I'll talk more about that. Josiah?
Yeah, and I'm Josiah Seaman. I work with Pivot Bio in the geospatial area. I have a PhD in computational biology, so I'm really interested in how to apply big data to these biological questions.
Right, well, so actually with that, why don't you just tell us a little bit about Pivot Bio?
So I wanted to start with sort of a motivating example. A lot of the talks that I've been to, it's been very clear that our technology is good, but it's not always clear like how I would immediately use this. So Pivot Bio is a company which builds microbes that enable food crops to produce their own nitrogen, and that's a replacement for the chemical nitrogen fertilizers. So in the wild, the way that this works is that throughout all of nature, since we're not fertilizing it, there are microbes that live and actually form a symbiotic relationship with the plant roots. And the roots give the microbes carbon, and in return, the microbes pull nitrogen out of the air, and they provide that to the plant as ammonia. So we're kind of trying to reclaim this aspect of nature where if we make microbes that can perform at these kind of industrial scales that we make food crops, then we'd be able to have a more environmentally sustainable and environmentally friendly solution. So in the past, we've been just applying a lot of chemical fertilizer to crops. And so you can see that this white truck tank here is all the fertilizer, and then there we go. Okay.
All right.
So there's some big downsides to using chemical fertilizers, and farmers are aware of this, but there's not really a viable alternative solution. So a couple of the things that we're trying to address and that soil microbes do a lot better is that chemical synthetic fertilizers they'll be sprayed on top of the ground rather than in the soil, which means they can volatilize, which means that that fertilizer that you just paid a lot of money for is now getting released into the air as greenhouse gases. And so that's money you paid for that is now just kind of going into the air. What's even worse is that since it's sitting on top of the soil, if you get unlucky and it rains immediately after you've fertilized, then you can get runoff. And so all of that very valuable fertilizer runs off into the local water table. It can poison rivers, canals, lakes in the area. And then we can have algal blooms, because remember, it's ammonia. It's very useful for plant growth. But if it's sitting in a lake, it's just going to make a bunch of algae. And then that algae metabolizes all of the oxygen in the water and creates a dead zone, and it can kill off all the fish and living things. So we don't want that to happen. And it can also get into the ground and cause groundwater contamination. So these are not desirable properties, and we already offer a product that reduces the amount of fertilizer that companies need to use in order to make sure that their crops are producing at maximum efficiency. And our goal in terms of product development is really to increase the amount of nitrogen that we're offering, so that people need to use less and less chemical fertilizer that has these kind of properties. And the final kicker is that once you have this chemical fertilizer in the soil and it's right next to the plant only actually takes in about 50% of it. So imagine if 50% of all of your product was wasted. Whereas when you have these soil microbes, they're not only just up against the roots, but they're actually like in between the cells. And so you can get a much more direct transfer of this really useful ammonia in order to make sure that the plant is getting closer to 100% of that. And it's weatherproof. It doesn't volatilize into the air because there's no excess made that the plant's not going to use. So we've got a couple of different products already on the market. We're doing corn, wheat, and sorghum. There's lots of other plants that we'd like to see. There's lots of other regions of the world we'd like to look at. And we'd like to look at the compatibility between our product and every different kind of pesticide, fungicide, different application techniques. And so in order to answer the very practical question of how is our product actually going to perform in the field in real world conditions, we have to collect a ton of geospatial data. And I'll go through all the different types of geospatial data that we're going to use. But fundamentally, this is the actual real world data that is our highest quality data that we care the most about, so that we have the sort of scientific proof that once we release the next generation of product, the third, fourth, and fifth generations of products, that they're going to be robust in a wide variety of environments, and that we might actually be able to give information to our customers about if something performs in a dry climate better, and then there's another product that performs in a wet climate, we can actually talk to them about giving advice on which products to use in their particular environments. And tracking all of that nuance is really important to show that we're having a product that's going to translate all the way to end production. So we're using the CARTO platform in order to basically integrate all of that data together. And Javier is going to tell us about that.
Thank you. So in other words, and it's a joke, we put Databricks on the map. It literally means, if you got geospatial data on Databricks, we provide a set of tools and a set of components that you can use to create your own applications and do analysis. So I'm just going to show you about this. So CARTO is exactly that. It's a spatial analytics platform that you can use like Pivot Bio for you develop your apps, or it's going to show you just a couple of things. Do a spatial analysis just by drag and dropping components that gets compiled into SQL that gets run by Databricks, right? So when we say that we're like a cloud native platform, it means that everything that you do in CARTO, it gets compiled and executed by Databricks. So it's all in there. We also provide advanced visualization capabilities in the form of if I had time, we'll give a demo where you can visualize very large data sets. So if you want to visualize, let's say 100,000 points in the map, it's relatively easy. But if you want to visualize 100 million or billions, then it gets really complicated. So we solve that problem by loading the data dynamically, and we provide applications to design those maps. And lastly, and this is the connection that we're doing with Pivot Bio, we provide all of that through APIs and SDKs, so that you can embed these analysis or these visualizations into your own products. And when it comes to visualization, you will see a few examples later. We are one of the biggest developers of an open source project called DeckGL that provides advanced mapping visualizations utilizing the GPU. So that's in a nutshell. Obviously, geospatial is very horizontal. We like to say that everything happens somewhere. So pretty much everything can be analyzed and understood, from a spatial perspective. So we work with many industries. And with that, I think you want to talk us a little bit about GeoViewer. So it's a great example of how leveraging CARTO capabilities on Databricks, you can create your own platform.
Yeah. So the kind of internal program that we use inside of Pivot Bio to look at our geospatial data is called GeoViewer. It's not for customers right now, but we need to really have good visibility on our own data so that we can do high quality data analytics on it, and so that we can aggregate everything together. So there are lots of different data types that Pivot Bio gathers, and the idea with GeoViewer is that we're building these adapters so that we can put all of that data together into a geospatial context. So for example, we fly drones, and you'll get to see a map soon here. We have teams of drone pilots all over the world, but mainly in the US, that are basically doing low-level flights back and forth and getting us very high-resolution mosaics in order to put all of that data together. We have field operation point data from equipment. And if you guys don't know what this is a big change in precision agriculture. The companies like John Deere have very accurate GPS coordinates for every single thing that the tractor is doing. And so as it's laying down fertilizer, as it's planting seeds, even as it's tilling, it's giving us detailed information about how many seeds were planted or what was harvested. And so, let's see, did that again.
It's the adapter.
Do you think it's, okay, there we go.
Yep.
Okay. And the newest thing that we're adding is LiDAR. So we want to do basically laser sweeps in order to get a really good sense of the exact elevation of every single plant in the field. And that gives us a much better sense of how much biomass is there, how tall the plants have grown and how long. And we can do that earlier in the season, which means that we can basically build prediction models to say, okay, you're at this growth level in the season, and so this is the level of harvest that we're expecting at the end of the year. And then when the harvest happens, we get that data from the tractor and can look at harvest, yield, and biomass. We have some additional data layers that were planned in the future. I was just talking with Javier about using AccuWeather to basically pull down historical information so we can see how much rainfall there has been and other conditions that could affect the plants. As I mentioned earlier, chemical fertilizers are highly affected by that. So that would be relevant for looking at the robustness under different weather circumstances. Okay, so we start off with the view of the United States, for example, and what we can do using all of the different geolocations of all the trials around the US is that we can aggregate them together so you can see where each of those is. And then if you click on those, it'll zoom in and separate them out into, for example, 10 individual trials here. And so then at the next level down, we can see one individual trial. And this red line here is what we call plot boundary. So the way that we lay this out is that we have plots that are specifically designed to be right next to each other, where we're doing different experimental conditions. So we'll have this condition, we'll have 160 pounds of nitrogen fertilizer, and this one immediately next to it will be 200 pounds or 100 pounds, depending. And then we can change other experimental variables like, was there pesticide applied to it? Is there a fungicide, so that we can tell? But it's very important to actually just look at the raw RGB drone flight images because there are things in the fields that have nothing to do with our experimental conditions, right? So in this particular case, we have essentially like a little creek that's coming into the plot, and it makes a big wet marshy spot where things are not growing well. That spot has nothing to do with the experimental conditions. And so we want to be able to find that, identify that, and be able to quality control flag that as, okay, if that's showing lower yield, that doesn't have anything to do with the data science questions that we're asking. And this also just allows you to sanity check, like, is the plot boundaries where we saw them, are the rows oriented the way that we saw them, things like that. So getting into what we call operations data, this is the operations point data that comes from the tractors themselves. So in this case, we're looking at planted, and so every single one of these data points is going to have a mouse over section where we can see what the seeding rate is, or what the tilling rate is, or what the harvest level is. And there's a timestamp on every single data point that's stored in Databricks that's saying when this happened, and so then we can calculate time differentials in Databricks. And this view is really helpful for just kind of sanity checking that, for example, here you can see not quite every other row is coming in from a different direction because we switched the experimental treatment. So we need to make sure that where the tractor was actually driven matches with the planned experiment. And then we can check all of that data. And finally, we have this numerical data. If you guys are familiar with NDVI, it's basically a measure of greenness. And so we can check the kind of multispectral data here and then do summaries where we say what each of the plot is and basically its green level index to see if the plants are flourishing or if they're having some difficulty. In comparison with NDVI versus, for example, LiDAR, we've noticed that, as you can see here, the NDVI tends to saturate towards kind of maximum greenness towards the end of the season. And so we lose that signal over time. And then things like LiDAR become more useful data points for tracking biomass. Okay, so looking at the infrastructure that actually enables all of this, we're really using Databricks as our go-to data lake in order to aggregate all these different types of data. So on the left here, each of these different pieces of text, the field trials, the field ops, the farmer portal, and the experiment setup, each of those is a different company, it's a different technology platform, and it's a different data format. And so we take all of those through their API and import them into Databricks, which is what Sky gets to do. You want to wave Sky? Yeah. So he does all of our ETL. And then Databricks gives us this central location in order to be able to query that information. And then what we use is CARTO as our sort of querying platform, and to a certain degree, the rendering platform as well through DeckGL. Highly recommend it. It's a great tool. And so we can say things like, hey, go to our Databricks store and give me all the information on this trial. Tell me how many flights there have been, what spectral types each of the flights were, and also do these calculations to summarize data points. And all that's queried through CARTO. And then on the other side, we have a notable exception, which is that we have to actually store the images from satellite or from drones and LiDAR. And currently, we're not storing the actual images themselves in Databricks. We have to have a separate raster server. where we're basically just putting them in S3 and being able to retrieve those mosaics back. And we have a whole pipeline for processing that mosaic. And so one of the things that we're excited to see is that CARTO is actually looking at, is planning on releasing soon a raster service so that we could just give the raster data to CARTO and kind of unify even more of this framework under a single thing. And so then GeoViewer only needs to talk to these two services. There's also a lot of other features that we're excited about. We were just in the kind of closed preview on Spatial SQL in CARTO, and we were able to take a query job really that used to take 12 hours, and it's now shortened down to 20 minutes. And the reason why is because we're just doing a lot of intersections. If you think about what our data looks like, we've got tons and tons of points and lots of different nested polygons, and we've got to do intersections on all of those. So doing that smartly through things like H3 makes the process a lot faster. All right, so what we've seen so far is that we're using our GIS data with the goal of being able to track outcomes in the real world under lots of different circumstances. And so we're using GeoViewer as that integration of raster data, vector data, point data. And Databricks is our kind of one-stop solution to data storage and querying. And then we're using CARTO as sort of a wrapper around Databricks in order to get that data back effectively. And I'm very happy with how CARTO gives us this both development speed, because we're not reinventing the wheel. We've got the DeckGL rendering platform. We've got CARTO's like styles for doing rendering. And for example, with weather, we'll be able to just say, hey, CARTO, give us weather, without going and curating that stuff for ourselves. So it gives us this speed up to our whole process from beginning to end. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. So I thought, to maybe start a little bit with, status of Geo in Databricks, which I'm pretty sure, a lot of people are very interested in here, and we have some great news today. We all know, Databricks is one of the most flexible platforms that are out there, right? And that reflects on the multiple options that you have to work with geospatial data on Databricks, right? So you have Apache Sedona, you have raster frames, there's Databricks Labs, Mosaic, there's many libraries that you can leverage in there. But in a way, you've been on your own to do a lot of these things, except when you're working with H3. So Databricks has native support for H3. It's this hexagons, it's a whole so-called spatial index. How many of you are using or know about H3? Okay, so it's a few of you. For those that do not know and work with geospatial data, I highly recommend you to check it out. It is a very, very effective way to index your geospatial data for fast analysis and also visualization. And because it's natively available on Databricks and is photon accelerated, it provides an incredible foundation for a lot of for speed up or for scalable spatial analytics. So highly recommend that. Now, but one of the things that we've been missing and that you have to in a way solve with external libraries is that Databricks does not have vector data, point, polygons, lines natively support. But that has changed actually today, a couple of hours. So very excited for this slide, finally here. And just talking, it's been in private preview not for long, but now it's officially there. So Databricks has announced a spatial SQL, which means, now there's more than 60 spatial functions available, and you can perform natively spatial intersections, right? So it comes with geometry and geography types, and that you can convert from well-known binary and well-known text. So here's an example of SQL that you could do. And for us, this is something that we've been waiting for a long time, In a way, I mean, like Databricks was kind of like the last kind of like data warehouse that kind of like came up, with adding this support. And a lot of people, we were waiting for it, and this is going to improve a lot the performance. So, so I think, I just added this. I mean, I'm so super happy that they announced this. So yeah, bravo for them. Great, and so what this means for us in terms of CARTO. So CARTO as a native platform, as we were showing before, we extend the capabilities that Databricks has, right? And the way that we extend it is by first installing a set of UDFs and libraries on your cluster to add more spatial capabilities. Until now, we actually had to add a lot of capabilities because there was no native support. But now what we're doing is if there is a spatial SQL available on your warehouse, we will use it. And that means that we can go as fast as we can. Because these native functions are very fast because they're photon accelerated. But if you don't have them, or you're like on another Spark product, you can we leverage a very popular open source project called Apache Sedona that provides a lot of those capabilities in there. So we're trying to provide the best of both worlds. So if you have a spatial SQL, we use it as the fastest. If not, we default to Apache Sedona. So it's a lot of capabilities in there. And then on top of it, we add, this is kind of like the functions that we add on top of this. So you can think of things like geocoding, routing, like how to create, like a special type of clustering, or in some cases, if you're familiar, creation of tile sets and more advanced kind of spatial objects. And within this, one of the important parts is that we've added also raster support. So it means that we have now ways to import raster datasets. Well, I'm advancing. I'll show you in a minute. So it's a lot of functionality on top of it. This is a little bit, how it looks like in our case. Again, in what you do is that you get the CARTO Analytics Toolbox, this set of functions. It's installed on your clusters or your warehouse, and then our tools, our visualization and analysis, uses those to actually provide you with all the capabilities, all the visualization and analytics. So think of now, finally you can have full pipelines to ingest all types of spatial data and perform natively without having to move the data, just purely on your Databricks, sitting there, all those capabilities. So very excited about that. Now, why we think this is important. With so many of you knowing with Geo, this industry, the geospatial industry, has been, in a way, very special from my point of view, for way too long. So the industry, if you were working with Geo, you were forced to use spatial data formats and spatial software. And we think, that's in a way, why geospatial has been 4 years behind the rest of analytics. So what we're really trying to do in here is really breaking that GIS data silo. It's making it possible to work with GIS data, with all your geospatial data, together with the rest of the data, so that you can leverage all the amazing things that are happening, on the analytics ecosystem, right? So we like to say, we want to let the spatial data play with all the other types of data, and that has a lot of benefits, right? And to do so, we've been working, including with Databricks, in a number of formats that are very, very important for that. So how do you store the data? So if you're on the geospatial industry, things like shape files, geo packages, geo databases. Well, those are specific formats for the geo community. But what we're working is on how we can represent that same data on Parquet. So that comes, with GeoParquet. It's an initiative to standardize how you represent vector data on Parquet formats. And if you store your data in that format, which is Parquet with metadata, think about Parquet with a well-known binary column, and we just have metadata that specifies how it is encoded, the projection, a number of things, so that the software can actually understand the geospatial data. So if you do it that way, then you can use things like Databricks to query and to use it, in this way. So that's on the vector side. We're also very excited, we've announced this month another initiative that we're calling RASCET, which the name we're not entirely sure because the idea of rasters in Parquet, so RASCET. We might have to look for a different name, suggestions are welcome. But essentially the idea is if we can store rasters in Parquet files, we will be able to access it together with the rest of the data again, right? So it's in this whole idea of how we can move geospatial data to just play with the rest of the data. right? So we're working on that in case you're interested. Now, but even going farther, I mean, we've seen it, with a lot of the announcements this week, but the future, is it's clearly going into more of like table formats, such as Iceberg and so on. So we're working within the community to also add geospatial support on those formats. Well, in fact, actually all the way from Arrow to Parquet to Iceberg. So kind of like this. And if you want, even on the visualization side, all the way to the XGL and the way that we do it on the GPU. So kind of like it is to really provide geospatial support in all the different pieces, from the encoding to the data types to the operators, so that you have like a full geospatial capabilities and in this new formats. And we think that's going to be like a really game changer. Everybody kind of like is very excited about what Iceberg is bringing to the community. Well, now Geo and Iceberg, from my point of view, it's going to be really revolutionary. So very excited about that. Now, I talk a little bit about rasters in Parquet. And many people ask me like, but how does this look like, right? How can you store like kind of like an image on a Parquet file? And I just kind of want to explain to you like very briefly. So think about like a GeoTIFF of 2 gigabytes will become something around 2.2 gigabytes in Parquet, in Rasket. And the way that we do it is that, as you know, like most rasters, they tend to be very large. So what you can do is you can tile it, right? So you make small chunks or small blocks. And each of these blocks becomes a row, right? And each row is actually referenced with metadata around its position and so on. And then each of the pixels within the tile becomes an array in a column. So each band on the GeoTIFF becomes, an automatic update. So each band becomes a column on Parquet as an array of pixels, right? And then you can add also temporal, to add like netcdf, kind of type of, like dimensions and so on. And the beauty of this is once you kind of have these type of structures, you can also then combine them vector and raster just in SQL. So you can do things like what is the average value of a raster in this polygon? And this is, from my point of view, it's really mind-blowing because if you think about it, in order to do this type of operations, now you will have to export, your vector, do your intersection with a raster in a specialized geospatial software. Well, now you can do all that on SQL, do it on an ETL, and make it all part of your orchestration and scheduling and so on. So I think this is gonna be, we're finding really, really useful. By the way, as we were showing before, this also enables us to store these raster objects on your geo data lake and visualize them later, put them on your applications, etc. That's kind of like the idea of how it works behind it. So I thought, we have 7 minutes, so I just wanted to give you a quick demo of this one. So this is actually the CARTO platform, where you can see I have here different objects. And very quickly, what you can do is you can set up a connection. I can set up here Databricks, and I can just put my details, and that connects my CARTO to it. And once I've done that, I can explore my data. So I have it here. We require the usage of Unity catalog, and here you can see I have a few tables that I can use. So if I click on them, you can see we support. This is a special type of objects. We call it these are H3 tables. So here I have an H3 as a column, and we can represent that, growing. And you can see how the data is loaded progressively. That's how we can handle very large data sets. So another example of that may be more clear on this one. So you're looking here is block groups. So this is around a 1 gigabyte data set, vector data, if it wants to load. Everybody get out of the Wi-Fi. That's all it, well, maybe I saw it there. Well, I think I have it on some maps, so we can look at that. So in these workflows, it is the part where you can do the analysis that I was describing you before. So here you have this interface where you can just drag and drop, table data and this, and then you can have all those components to perform different color transformations. And you can concatenate all these things, do a simple filter, all the bytes, all these type of things, the spatial operations. And all of that gets compiled into SQL that is run on Databricks. So the idea again is like everything, all the analysis that you do gets actually called like executed. We don't run it on, think of like just as a thin called like UI that allows you to call like do these things in a simple way. So that's for the analytics part. I'm gonna show you also the visualization part. So on the visualization part, let's make a new map. So if I make a map, this is a builder, it's our interface. I can add the source here. So I can go here to a data explorer. I go into here, so it's 24. So I can add, like something like, this data set that I couldn't see before. Let's see if this one works now. Maybe I'm not gonna work. All right. Well, maybe I'm just gonna open then an existing one. Why? Well, I'm just gonna open the one that exists in here. So I'm just opening one that exists. And what I've done, let me actually remove this. I'm gonna remove the mask and then remove this. So just gonna come back here. So as you can see, like here, I'm visualizing like a very large data set. This is actually the block groups. As you can see, as I zoom in or I pan, you can see how the data is loading progressively. It's adding more and more resolution. That's how we can enable like visualizations of very large data sets. I can change the visualizations. I can change, like things like the color ramps and like different things like that. That's all powered by this DeckGL, this library that I was talking about. You can add, like strokes. I think I added here the heights. So I can, like extrude it, and then I can put it, like on 3D formats. So this is the way that you design your maps, and then you can integrate it into your applications if you want to. You can share it with others, etc. You can split this. I can also like do like some sort of masks, so on. So you get all this option in here. I think we have a few more maps in here that was kind of like looking at. Well, but you get the idea. So this is CARTO in a nutshell. And then, like I said, like you have all these on the developers. This is how you integrate it into your own applications. So that's for the demo. I want to have because the other thing that I got really excited today, I want to also mention, it is on the concept of AI, right? So one of the other big challenges that we have on the geospatial industry is that we tend to think that reading maps and using maps is easy. We love them, so everybody should understand them. But the reality is that we find that many maps or many applications that include maps don't have a lot of engagement. Not everybody knows how to use maps, and they don't know how to get answers when looking at the maps. So that's something that, where AI can really help to reduce that. And this is, it's calibrated, but you can say that there's like around 4 million GIS users, 85 million SQL users, but there's 8 billion language speakers, right? So that's kind of like the idea of like how by leveraging AI, we can really open up to a much wider audience. And something that really kind of like it's making this possible, and today there were some announcements here, also Databricks, it's the availability of two things. So first of all is this multimodal LLMs. So the possibility that now like the LLMs can also consume images, videos. Well, it turned out that they can also consume maps. Now a lot of these models are being trained on maps on geography. And that means that if you give them screenshots of your maps, they're going to understand them. They're going to understand the location. They're going to be able to provide context. All right, so that's number one. That's pretty cool, and that's very important. And the other, and today there was like an announcement here at Databricks. It is this rise of AI agents. Like this concept of, that you can provide with tools and you can make the AI resonate on a plan on how to solve a business problem, right? So if you combine those two things, we've introduced this concept of CARTO AI agents, which allows you to design an AI agent when you're making the map. So if you're like an analyst that is making a map to show something around, for example, like crops or NDVI, and I say like, hey, look, this is my analysis, you know exactly the type of questions that your analysis can provide. You can tell like, this is a map useful to do this is a map useful to do that. This is the type of questions you can make. So what we allow you on CARTO and Builder is a way to express that, and we create, like the prompt with that information, and that allows you, to make, like questions like this. I'm going a little bit fast because we don't have much time, but this is a map created, like with Builder, as I was showing before, where the user has enabled an AI agent. And this AI agents will be powered by Databricks too. CARTO covers all your governance and so on. I'm giving a few CARTO examples in here. This is a logistics company, and what is CARTO looking is what is the brand, like what you're seeing here is all the red dots are essentially deliveries, and the green dots are like stations from where those packages get delivered, right? So what we're getting here is the user is asking a question, and the AI, in this case the agent, is trying to understand, how can I solve this? And it's looking and it's taking control of the interface using CARTO racks and using tools to modify the interface. It actually, at this point, the agent is in control of the application. It's changing the filters, it's using the map, it's taking the screenshots, and it's passing all that to the AI agent for interpretation. So that's this combination of multimodal and AI agents that, like now you have like an agent able to resonate how they can use all the options that you're giving on the map to answer a specific business question. It is mind-blowing, especially because you learn also how to use a lot, your own maps by looking at the agent CARTO using it. So we think this is going to be a great way to provide a much wider accessibility to a lot of these analysis that we tend to think to be easy, but a lot of people have a hard time actually using them. And with that, I think, I have it here. So the way that I design it, I think we already kind of passed it. As I said, like it is when you design the map, the person that is creating the analysis is the one that can provide the context for the AI to provide a good experience. So for example, if to that map I'm asking like, okay, what is the best place to grow, like corn? The agent will say like, well, this map cannot tell you that answer, right? This map only can tell you these type of questions. So it's a very good way to control the actual, the AI so that it kind of just doesn't hallucinate and it only works on what you want them to work. So I think that's it. With that, thank you very much. And yeah.